Picture the moment before it begins. Something shifted, a difficult conversation, a day that didn't land the way it should have, the particular heaviness of a problem you cannot yet solve. And instead of sitting with it, you stand up. You pick up a cloth. You begin. Within 20 minutes, the counter is clear, the cushions are straight, and something in the room and in you has quietly changed. The problem is still there, but you can face it now. And if you have always done this without quite understanding why, what follows is the explanation. People who cannot think clearly in a messy space are not difficult. They are not dramatic. They are not performing perfectionism for an audience. What they are is highly sensitive, in a specific and documented way, to the relationship between the environment around them and the environment inside them. And once you understand the neuroscience beneath the behavior, the obsession stops looking excessive and starts looking like one of the most rational responses a mind can have. Start with biology. Researchers at UCLA found that people living in cluttered homes had measurably elevated cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, throughout the day. Not just in moments of conscious frustration with the mess, but continuously, as background chemistry. The visual field was being processed as a stressor, not metaphorically, literally. The nervous system was registering the cluttered environment the same way it registers a genuine threat, because, to a sensitized brain, it is one. The mess doesn't look bad, it feels bad. It produces a low, persistent signal that something needs to be resolved, a background hum that consumes cognitive resources the mind needs for everything else. For roughly 20% of the population, psychologist Elaine Aron's research identifies a meaningfully different sensory processing threshold. Highly sensitive people process environmental stimuli more deeply and more thoroughly than others. The visual information in a cluttered room, every object, every displaced item, every unresolved surface is processed with greater intensity, generating genuinely elevated cognitive load. A clean space is not a preference for these people. It is cognitive decompression. When the environment clears, the mind gets itself back. This is why cleaning before working feels essential rather than avoidant. It is not procrastination, it is preparation. The external space is, functionally, an extension of the mind, and it has to be organized before real thinking can begin. If this is recognizable, if the connection between your outer space and your inner state is something you live with but have never quite had language for, take a moment to like this video. It helps more people find this conversation. And if exploring the hidden psychology beneath everyday behavior is something you want to keep doing, subscribe. This is exactly what we do here. The second layer is about control, but not in the way the word usually implies. When life is uncertain, when emotions are complex, when external circumstances resist management, the mind searches for a domain where effort still produces predictable results. Psychologist Julian Rotter's research on locus of control established that people who experience the world as largely outside their governance often develop precise behavioral strategies for reclaiming agency in smaller domains. Cleaning is one of the most functional expressions of this. It is a behavioral declaration. This, at least, I govern. In an unpredictable world, difficult relationships, unstable systems, problems that resist solutions, the cleared counter is not a small thing. It is evidence that intervention is possible. That action produces change. The quiet reward of a completed task fires in the brain not just as satisfaction, but as proof. You can make things better. The dopamine is real. And it carries a message the mind needs to hear. But the deepest layer is older than any of this. And it is the one the behavior rarely announces directly. For many people who developed a strong need for clean, ordered spaces, the connection was formed somewhere in a home that wasn't. A childhood where clutter meant tension. Where mess was the signal that something was wrong, that the environment was unsafe, that a difficult moment was coming. The nervous system, in its extraordinary precision, did what nervous systems do. It learned the association. It registered disorder as a threat signal because in that specific environment, disorder sometimes was one. The objects themselves carried no danger. But the conditions those objects signaled were sometimes genuinely threatening, and the body remembered. As adults, these people clean their homes not only because they prefer order. They clean, on some level their conscious mind may not fully access, to continuously prove something to the nervous system that is still listening. This space is not that space. This is different. This is safe. Every organized shelf is a promise kept to a younger version of themselves who needed that safety and didn't always have it. The cleaning isn't compulsive. It is protective. It is building, room by room and surface by surface, the home their younger self desperately needed. There is a paradox at the center of this that the world consistently misreads. These people appear to be about surfaces, about control, about what is visible. But the obsession with what is visible is always, underneath, about what is not. It is about what the body carries that cannot be seen, about the feeling that lives beneath the neat counter and the straightened cushions and the organized drawer. The person who cannot rest in a cluttered space is not judging your mess. They are managing their own response to it, a response they did not choose and often do not fully understand. And when they clean for someone else the immaculate guest room before a friend arrives, the fresh kitchen, before the family gathers, the carefully prepared space for someone they love, it is not performance. It is communication in the only language some emotions can find. A cleared table says, "I want you to feel comfortable here. I prepared this for you. You matter enough that I made this ready." Behind the neatness is nearly always a soft heart that would rather show care through action than attempt to say it in words that feel inadequate. Tidiness is not judgment. It is a vulnerability expressed through surfaces. And then there is this, which might be the most surprising piece of all. For many people whose minds run continuously, who overthink, who process deeply, who cannot easily quiet themselves, cleaning is the only reliable pathway into the present moment. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow describes the state of complete absorption in a task. Time distorts, self-consciousness drops, and the present moment is all there is. The repetitive, physical, sensory nature of cleaning, folding, scrubbing, straightening produces exactly this state in minds that cannot achieve it through sitting still. It is not a lesser form of presence. It is mindfulness in the body, rather than the breath. Where others meditate or journal, these people scrub and sort. And the result, the quieted mind, the grounded body, the returned sense of self is the same, self-soothing, disguised as productivity, both entirely real, neither in contradiction. The person who cannot rest in a cluttered space is not difficult. They are not controlling. They are not performing. They are someone whose nervous system learned, through long experience, that the outer world is not separate from the inner one, that what surrounds them shapes what they carry. That a cleared surface is not just a cleared surface. It is a signal to the body, to the mind, to whatever part of them is still listening for evidence that the environment can be trusted. They clean because they learned, perhaps earlier than most, that safety is not always given. Sometimes you have to make it yourself. That is not an obsession. That is one of the most human things there is. Do you recognize this in yourself, the way your outer space directly affects your inner state, and did you ever understand why until now? Leave it in the comments. More people live this quietly than anyone ever says out loud. Thank you for watching.